Welcome to the Step Ballers channel. I'm Tom and this is my brother James.
Hey, what's up?
We're going to be breaking down everything that happened in the first round of the 2026 NBA playoffs, this time looking at the Eastern Conference matchups.
Yeah, we're going to go matchup by matchup. We're going to discuss each series and how it went down. Some of these series are going to get a lot more attention than others, and that's just due to some of them being far more competitive.
With that being said, if you enjoy the video, please give it a like and hit the subscribe button, as there will be plenty of more videos on the way. So let's dive in.
So we're starting off in the East with the 1v8 matchup. Detroit looked to get their postseason started against the 8-seeded Magic, who scraped in via the play-in tournament.
I don't think anyone saw this series going longer than 4 or 5 games, let alone 7, but we'll get to that. Game 1 kicked off with Cade Cunningham putting up an incredible 39 points on 48% from the field, but remarkably, it would be the Magic who stole the first game of the series. Franz and Paolo combined for 42 points on over 50% shooting, while Wendell Carter went a blistering 8 for 9 and added 7 boards and 5 assists.
Yeah, this was a huge early statement from Orlando. The Magic starters really carried this game, while Detroit's depth advantage did not really show up in the way that you would expect. If Orlando were going to push this series deep, their starters are going to continue to need to produce at a high level, and in Game 1 they did exactly that.
Game 2 saw the Pistons bounce back behind a strong game from Cade, who finished with 27 points, 11 assists and 6 boards, although he did have 7 turnovers. Stewart and Javonte Green also gave Detroit important defensive minutes off the bench.
Yeah, and on the other side, Bane and Suggs really struggled from the field for the second straight game, and Wendell Carter was basically a non-factor after his big performance in Game 1. The Pistons take this one 98-83 to even up the series at 1-1.
Game 3 moved back to Orlando, where the home team had a chance to protect home court after stealing one on the road. The game stayed tight, and Orlando got exactly what they needed from Bane, Wendell, and Paolo down the stretch.
Yeah, Paolo was fantastic in this one. He notched 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists to go along with 5 stocks as well. He didn't shoot particularly great, but he got the job done by going 11 for 14 from the free throw line.
Cade, meanwhile, struggled again. Franz and Anthony Black gave him problems defensively, and he finished just 8 for 23 with another 9 turnovers. The 1-seed Pistons fell into a 1-2 series deficit, and alarm bells were going off.
And then we moved to Game 4, which was an offensive disaster class as both teams combined to shoot 15 for 65 from 3. Cade once again struggled from the field and failed to contain his turnovers, marking the third consecutive game in the series with 7 or more turnovers.
On the other end, Paolo also struggled, putting up just 18 points on 4 for 18 shooting, while Suggs managed just 1 for 13. Despite shooting 32% from the field, the Magic somehow pulled out a gritty win and claimed a commanding 3-1 lead.
Although it would not come without a cost, Franz Wagner departed the game early in the third and went down to the locker rooms with a calf injury, which ruled him out for the rest of Game 4 and eventually Games 5 and 6 as well.
In place of Franz, Jamal Cain stepped into a bigger role and had a huge moment midway through the fourth. With the Magic up 2, Cain drove down the court and slammed down a huge poster on Duran to open up a 4-point cushion and send a message to Detroit.
Game 5 was an unbelievable showdown between two stars operating at the peak of their powers. Paolo and Cade both had 45 points in this one, both on great efficiency, and they both left it all on the court, but it would actually be the Pistons who would take this one 116-109 to save their season and force a Game 6 in Orlando.
Credit to the Pistons for the win, but the Magic really shot themselves in the foot with the free throw line. 16 for 30 from the line in a 7-point loss has got to sting. They had a real chance to send the 1-seed home and failed to capitalize.
But the Magic would once again have a chance to take out the 1-seed, this time in Game 6 and on their home court. I don't think we really need to get into every detail of this game, aside from the obvious. The Magic were up 24 points in the third quarter before missing 23 consecutive field goals.
They went from shooting 56% from the field in the first half to an abysmal 4 for 37 in the second half. Cade finished with 32 points and 10 rebounds, and the Pistons did enough to capitalize on a complete Magic collapse.
All the momentum swings back to Detroit. Both teams would now have a chance to take the series in a win-or-go-home Game 7.
It all comes down to this one for Detroit and Orlando. Season on the line for both teams after a rollercoaster series full of question marks for both sides.
Yeah, the game started out slow for both sides, with the score sitting at 22-20 in the Magic's favor after the first period. But from there on out, it would be all Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, Detroit really quickly got control of this one, led by their superstar in Cunningham, who put up an impressive 32 and 12 in the series finale.
However, the story of this one would really be Tobias Harris. For the third straight game, Harris has been the second best scorer on the team, and he finished this one with 30 points to go along with 9 rebounds and 4 stocks. 60% from the field and over 70% from 3 in the closeout game. and the MVP of Game 7 goes to him for sure.
Paolo did put up a respectable fight, tallying 38 points of his own for the Magic, but no one else came along for the ride in this one, as the Magic shot just 41% from the field to Detroit's 51%.
Yeah, it feels like the Magic offense just dried up after that horrific Game 6 collapse, and it never properly recovered. Without Franz as well, it's just really tough trying to guard Cade effectively. The Pistons win big here, coming out of this one 116-94 winners in Game 7, and they're moving on to the second round.
We head to the Celtics and 76ers series now, and this was always going to be one of the more interesting first-round matchups. Boston came in as the 2 seed, but Philly were not a normal 7 seed, especially with the possibility of Embiid returning later in the series.
That being said, though, Embiid wasn't available to start the series, which put a lot of pressure on Maxey, Paul George, and the rest of the Sixers supporting cast to keep the series alive early on.
Game 1 was pretty much exactly what Boston would have wanted. They came out at home, controlled the tempo, and made life difficult for Philly without Embiid in the middle. The Celtics were able to space the floor, get into their offense early, and force the Sixers into some tough possessions.
Maxey still had his moments, and Paul George was able to create some offense, but without Embiid, Philly just lacked that reliable half-court option when the game would slow down, and Boston did a great job of making the Sixers work for everything.
Tatum and Brown both looked comfortable, and the Celtics' depth was a real factor. Even when Philly had good stretches, Boston had enough shooting and enough defensive pressure to keep the control of the game.
The Celtics take Game 1, and at that point, it looked like the series might just follow the expected script. Boston using their depth, shooting, and playoff experience to handle a Sixers team waiting for Embiid to return.
But Game 2 changed the tone of the series. Philly came out with far more urgency, and you could tell early that Maxey was not going to let the Sixers go back home down 2-0 without a fight.
The Sixers played with much better pace in this one. Instead of getting stuck late in the clock, they pushed the ball, got Maxey downhill, and created better looks for their shooters. Boston still had their moments, but Philly looked much more comfortable offensively than they did in Game 1.
And this was also a huge game for the first-year rookie VJ Edgecombe. He gave the Sixers exactly what they needed: confidence, shot-making, and a bit of personality. With around 3 minutes left in the fourth, he hit a step-back nail in the coffin 3, then gave a wink to the camera. It was such a cool playoff moment.
Maxey and Edgecombe would ultimately combine for 59 points, and the Sixers would run out 14-point victors to tie the series at 1-1 heading back to Philadelphia. We get the news earlier in the day before Game 3 that Embiid was going to be out, but it was looking very likely that he'd return in the next game. With that in mind, Game 3 became even more crucial for Boston, as the last thing they would want is a series deficit with Embiid returning.
Game 3 saw the Celtics come out strong, with their three-point shooting finally coming alive. Boston hit 7 threes in the first quarter and built enough of a cushion to stay in control.
The Sixers did steady themselves through PG, Maxey, and VJ, but the Celtics rose to the occasion in the fourth quarter. They shoot 58% from the field and went 4 for 8 from 3 in the final period, with Tatum and Brown doing most of the damage late.
The Sixers stars just could never find a rhythm in this one, with VJ and Maxey shooting a combined 17 for 48 from the field. The Celtics take a 2-1 lead.
This game was crucial for the Celtics to grab, with Embiid closing in on his return. Post-game, Jaylen Brown said, "We definitely wanted to come back and respond after dropping one on our home floor," and they did exactly that.
Game 4 marked the return of Embiid. He was upgraded from doubtful to questionable an hour before tip-off, before being confirmed as available 20 minutes before the game. A huge in for the Sixers, who are obviously much better when Joel is healthy.
Embiid played reasonably well in this one offensively, but he did look slow-footed defensively and definitely needed some time to adjust to the pace of NBA basketball again. He finished with 26, 10, and 6, but was a negative 25 on the night.
The Celtics opened up the game with a 34-18 first quarter and never really let up. This became the Peyton Pritchard game, 32 off the bench with 6 threes to give Boston the lift they needed.
Tatum also added a huge 30 points, 7 rebounds, and 11 assists, while Boston as a team hit 24 of 53 from 3. The Celtics are incredibly hard to beat when their threes are dropping like this. They take a 3-1 series lead, and it really looked like they'd wrap up the series in Boston. And before moving on from this one, the bench disparity in Game 4 was pretty alarming for Philadelphia. Boston got 57 points from its bench, while the Sixers got just 22. It really showed how much Philly has to rely on its starting unit.
Game 5 was all or nothing for the Sixers. Needed to somehow get a win in Boston to force Game 6 on their home court. And in this one, we truly saw the duality of the Celtics.
After shooting 24 of 53 from 3 in Game 4, they went 11 for 39 in Game 5. In a critical closeout opportunity, it was not enough to overcome the Sixers, who look like they've really hit their stride in this one.
Despite being outplayed in the first half and facing a 7-point deficit at halftime, Philly outscored Boston by 23 points in the second half and secured a season-saving win.
The key stretch was a 12:06 run in the fourth quarter, and Boston did not hit a single field goal after the 7-minute mark. They ended with just 11 points as a team in the fourth.
Embiid came alive, pairing with Maxey to score a combined 58 points. PG added 16, 9, and 7, while Edgecombe hit a couple of big threes in the second half.
The Sixers really tightened their rotation in this one. Grimes was the only Sixer off the bench to play real minutes, and he rewarded them with 18 points in 24 minutes. But the question became whether Philly would have the legs to keep this going.
Game 6 in Philly was another elimination game for the Sixers, and they played like it. All 5 starters managed to score 14 or more points, and even though Maxey scored an efficient 30, the highlight was probably Paul George.
Yeah, PG scored an efficient 23 and played extremely well defensively, holding Tatum to just 1 field goal attempt when directly matched up with him. He also tallied 2 steals and a block in the game.
The Celtics once again shot 12 for 41 from 3, and for the second consecutive game failed to capitalize on their series lead. Now we go back to Game 7 in Boston.
Before Game 7, we get the news that Jason Tatum is out. Tatum left Game 6 with a calf and knee issue, but it was not expected that he would miss Game 7.
This left Boston in a desperate situation with the rotation. While the Sixers went in fully healthy and coming off 2 straight wins, from the outset this looked like it was going to be a tough one for the Celtics. They ended up starting Luka Garza, Baylor Shireman, and Ron Harper Jr. for a win-or-go-home Game 7, whereas the Sixers going fully healthy and coming off 2 straight wins.
And almost immediately, this Celtics lineup was not working. The Sixers capitalized and took a 32-19 lead into the first break. Embiid had 10 points, and VJ, the rookie, in his first Game 7, came out and scored 9 in the opening quarter.
The second quarter saw the game flip a little bit, with Derek White having his best quarter of the series. Cater and Pritchard gave solid contributions to the undermanned Celtics squad, and at halftime it was Philly by 5.
The third was all 76ers again, with VJ, Embiid, and Maxey combining well to extend the lead to 13 points at the final break. Derek White struggled in this quarter quite a bit after his strong first half.
In the fourth, Boston fought back hard. Cater and Brown helped trim the lead all the way down to 1, but the final few minutes defined the game.
Yeah, the Sixers were stifled by Boston's defense, but the Celtics simply could not hit the open threes with the game hanging in the balance.
Shout out to Tyrese Maxey for a couple of great possessions at the end of the game. He attacked switches with Hauser, who had no chance to keep up with his speed. 2 critical drives put the Sixers up 5 with a minute remaining, and that proved to be the difference.
Yeah, and important to note that Embiid really couldn't get going in the final quarter, and he suffered a number of awkward knocks to his knee late in the game. He was limping up and down the court and could not be used in the post like he usually would be.
So to see Maxey take over late and win the game for his team was truly special. Big shout out to VJ Edgecombe as well. A fantastic game from the rookie, ending with 23 points on 5 for 11 from the 3. He was massive.
Yeah, the 76ers complete an amazing 3-1 comeback and move on to the second round. Boston put up a commendable fight in Game 7, but without Tatum, they just couldn't get over the line.
For Philly, it's a great comeback, but Embiid's injury concern and their bench depth will be something to watch in the next round. Now we move on to the 3v6 matchup between the Knicks and the Hawks.
Game 1 was a comfortable win for New York, with a too little too late comeback attempt by Atlanta, making the scoreboard look a little bit more flattering by the end.
The Knicks pulled away in the second half. Cat took over and finished with 25, while Brunson finished with 28. CJ had a strong game for Atlanta with 26 on efficient shooting, while Kongwu and OG both had good moments. Knicks take a 1-0 series lead.
Game 2 looked like the Knicks were going to follow the same script from Game 1, as they looked comfortable throughout the first 3 quarters, but in the fourth, the Hawks locked in and outscored the Knicks 28-15.
CJ McCollum, despite scoring 32 in the game, missed 2 free throws with 6 seconds left, leaving the Knicks down 1 with the ball.
But Mikal Bridges was unable to get the game-winning attempt to go, and the Hawks take this one to tie up the series 1-1. There were some pretty worrying signs for New York on this one, especially with Karl Anthony Towns, as his usage was very down despite his high efficiency throughout the game, and the Brunson ISO ball-centric offense was not looking promising in the closing stages.
Game 3 started with a Hawks flurry in the first quarter, but the game once again went down to the wire. This time, McCollum hit a game-winning mid-range jumper before Atlanta double-teamed Brunson as he tried to drive baseline for the winner. It ended in a turnover and a 2-1 series lead for the Hawks.
And this is where the series really changed. From this point on, the Knicks flipped a switch with their offensive approach and got on top very quickly in each of the next 3 games.
They started using Cat as an offensive hub, getting him early touches at the high post and running off-ball screens for OG and Brunson. This unlocked everything for the Knicks, and the points were flowing.
Cat ended up with a triple-double in 2 of the next 3 games, and the series culminated in one of the most lopsided playoff games in NBA history. The Knicks went up by 60 in Game 6 before walking out 51-point winners and taking the series 4-2 off 3 consecutive wins.
Yeah, wow. Will be interesting to see if the Knicks can carry this new offensive mentality into their round 2 matchup.
Some final thoughts here from the Hawks' perspective. It was a tough series for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Jalen Johnson also had his struggles with his efficiency. Dyson Daniels' defensive effort was undeniable, but his offensive limitations stood out in a playoff setting with this much of a role.
No shade to the Hawks, though. They played a great second half of the season and really made something of it after the Trae Young and Porzingis trades. Taking the Knicks to 6 game is not nothing.
Now for the 4v5 matchup out in the East, with the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Toronto Raptors, and it would be Cleveland taking the first game of the series off the back of a huge 36-22 third quarter.
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell led the way with 32 points, while his backcourt partner James Harden added 22 and 10. Interestingly, the Cavs decided to start Dean Wade over Max Strus and Jalen Tyson, who had started most of the year for them. Strus still managed to make a huge impact, scoring 24 points in the opening game on just 10 shots.
For the Raptors, RJ Barrett finished with 24 points, but he also had 4 turnovers, while Murray Boyles gave them a very efficient 14 points on 7 of 8 shooting.
The Raptors did hang around all game, but that third quarter blitz provided to be the difference in this one and allowed the Cavs to take a 1-0 series advantage on their home court.
Game 2 in Cleveland was another tightly contested game as Scotty Barnes led the way with 26 points on 11 for 19 from the field, while RJ again turned up with 22 points and 9 assists.
Cleveland still got plenty of juice from their starters, as Spider kept up to his hot start to post 30 points and 7 assists, while Evan Mobley added 25 and 8. Harden too was great with 28 points and 5 stocks, despite 5 turnovers. Quick note as well, Harden had 4 assists to move 7th all-time in the playoff career list with 1,139.
The game was led wire to wire by the Cavs, but the lead never blew out or became insurmountable. A good professional win here from the Cavaliers to set up a 2-0 series lead heading up north.
Game 3 was completely different story, as Toronto are now defending their home court and did so in a big way.
Yeah, in this one, Harden really struggled with his shot. He finished with just 38% from the field and 8 turnovers, while Toronto's stars took control of the game. Scotty Barnes had 33 points and 11 boards, while RJ continued his fantastic series by adding 33 points along with 5 assists.
The Raptors bench stood out again, with Colin Murray-Boyles and Jamison Battle leading the way with some efficient scoring. Murray-Boyles actually became the first Raptors rookie to score 20 or more points in the playoffs ever.
Toronto defended their home court in Game 3, able to win big by 27 points and stay in touch with Cleveland, cutting the series lead to 2-1.
Game 4 in Toronto was an ugly mess. Both teams defensively were fantastic, but the points were few and far between for both sides.
Cleveland shot just 37% from the field and 25% from 3, while the Raptors were even rougher at 32% from the field and 13% from 3.
The only player in this game that stood out offensively was Mr. Consistent Colin Murray-Boyles, who finished with a strong 15 and 10 rebounds.
The key late game moment came with around 49 seconds left on the clock as Jamal Shed made an amazing defensive play, getting the game-saving steal attempt to force Donovan Mitchell into a turnover.
Toronto won this scrappy battle, evened up the series 2-2, and we are heading back to Cleveland with all the pressure suddenly back onto the Cavs.
Game 5 was a huge change from the grind of Game 4, with the scoring opening right back up for both teams.
For Cleveland, Dennis Schroeder had a big game off the bench, finishing with 19 points, including 11 in the fourth. Mobley would post a stat line of 23 points, 9 boards, and 4 stocks, while Harden finished with 23, 9, but along with 6 turnovers.
Toronto still had plenty going offensively, with RJ and Jacoby Walter adding 20 plus each, and Scotty was on triple-double watch.
The Raptors bench was again super impactful, with Shed and Mamu the standouts.
I think this game perfectly showed the switching tendencies of both teams on defense. Both teams are getting into their offense quickly and mismatch hunting and finding just the small advantages possession by possession.
The Cavs squeeze out a 5-point win at home to take back control of the series, and they'll head to Toronto for a massive Game 6, where they have the chance to eliminate the Raptors and move on to the second round.
So we head to Toronto for Game 6, with Cleveland having a chance to close the series and avoid the chaos of a Game 7. But after Toronto dragged the series back from 2-0 to 2-2, and then pushed Cleveland hard in Game 5, this no longer felt like a series the Cavs could just cruise through.
For the Raptors, this was about protecting home court and forcing the pressure back onto Cleveland again. Win this one, and suddenly the Cavs have to defend their season at home in Game 7.
And that's exactly what happened. Game 6 was another tight contest, and Toronto managed to survive in overtime and force a Game 7.
Evan Mobley was huge with 26 and 14, including a massive two-pointer with 12 seconds left in regulation to tie the game and send it into OT. Harden added 16, 9, and 9, while Colin Murray-Boyles again gave Toronto a strong performance with 17, 7, and 5 stocks.
Cleveland outscored Toronto 23-12 in the final frame to send it to overtime, but ultimately fell short. At the very end of OT, with the Raptors down 1 point, Scotty Barnes drives and kicks it out to a mostly open RJ Barrett, who unloads from 3. The ball bounces off back ring, and just like Halliburton did last year, the shot drops to give them a 2-point lead with only a couple seconds remaining.
Mobley would have the chance to take the lead back for Cleveland, but his shot fell just short as time expired, and we have Game 7 back in Cleveland.
After this game, Donovan Mitchell said in his press conference, "Protect home court. It doesn't matter if we lost by 30 or by 2. Protect home court." And that'll be exactly the Cavs' mentality as they head into this do-or-die game with their season on the line.
And we are off now to Game 7, back in Cleveland to decide the series. The first half begins, and it's a very tight contest. The Raptors did seize momentum for a little bit here before the Cavs managed to pull back in before the main break and level the scores.
Shed and Barnes for the Raptors combined for a really nice first half, putting up a combined 28 points on good efficiency, whereas RJ Barrett and Jacoby Walter really struggled to hit their shots. For the Cavs, the first half mini comeback was led by their bench unit, who came in to score 20 of their 49 points in limited minutes.
Looked like we were in for a close contest here to decide the series, but the third quarter would swing very hard in favour of the Cavs, who completely dominated the period behind 14 points and 10 rebounds from Jarrett Allen in the third quarter alone. They doubled the Raptors' score in this period, opening up a 19-point lead at the final break, leaving the Raptors' season hanging by a thread.
RJ continued his rough shooting through the quarter, going 1 for 8, and this was indicative of their inability to convert on good looks throughout this game.
The Cavs would do enough in the fourth quarter to seize this game and win the series.
I want to mention here that Emmanuel Quickly, who we haven't really touched on at all, was out for the whole series, and it was always going to be a very tough go for the Raptors to piece together a competent guard rotation, especially facing veteran stars on the other end in James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. For the Cavs, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle their small forward rotation going forward, as it feels that Jalen Tyson and Max Strus are clearly the best options for them as closers when the games get tight. They have a handful of wing options to take into the next round, though, with Wade, Tyson, Strus, and Merrill all performing pretty well in their roles.
A positive coming out of this series for the Raptors was the excellent play of Murray-Boyles, who off the bench in this series put together an amazing series, averaging 14, 6, and 2, and 2 stocks on 66% shooting. A great playoff debut for the rookie center, and really showing that he could have a strong NBA career ahead of him. And that wraps up a chaotic first round out east. The Eastern Conference produced some wild first round series, and 3 Game 7s.
And now we move on to round 2. Will it be the Knicks or the Sixers heading to the conference finals? Can the Cavs or the Pistons have a stronger showing in the second round?
We'll be back to break it all down. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and let us know which round 2 matchup you're most excited for.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.